Women, have you heard? The Free Birthing in Color movement now has a private community space for all women to join. Within this private community, we have monthly village prenatals to celebrate and support the pregnant women moving towards their birthing time. There are monthly community calls to build deeper connection with one another. We have bi monthly book clubs to gain deeper wisdom of our female bodies. There are guest speakers that will facilitate talks on all things women's health. We have space for mothers to share their in power birth stories and so much more. You can join this community space for only $6 per month from now until December 21st of this year. I know that you've been seeking connection, support, guidance, knowledge, and newfound friendships. So now is the time to join us and find exactly what you're looking for. Even if you don't identify as a woman of color or an Indigenous woman, you're welcome to be here because we all need to be witnessed in the passages of life that we move through, no matter who we are or what we look like. This community will hold you whether you're pregnant or not pregnant, trying to conceive, don't want children at all, if you've had losses or abortions, if you're a birth or death worker of any kind, a grandmother, an auntie, or wise woman, there's space for you to be seen and share your wisdom to the collective well. Go to primalwomenportal.com/FBC community or check the show notes to become a member today. Nadine is a mother who birthed her first baby free of the medical system. She's also a triplet, which I thought was such a cool piece of information and had to mention it. Nadine grew up in Ghana from the age of 5, so the values of community living and nurturing were very present in her life. In this conversation, she speaks about taking on the role of helping tend to her elder brother's child at the age of 10, as this is a normal display within Ghanaian community structures. Growing up and knowing that what she wanted was to be a mother and looking into the ways that she could make that possible. Knowing exactly what she wanted for herself and then meeting a partner that was on the same page. Getting pregnant and sharing her desire to birth with only her partner present, which led to some preparation through watching birth videos, listening to podcasts, and self-study. Having an experience with a medical midwife where she was completely ignored when she spoke of her want to possibly have a birth free of the system. Flying to the UK around 33 weeks and taking care of her pregnancy on her own. Nadine speaks to how her birth brought some healing to her mother's birth and experience after having her triplets. Being emotionally and mentally supported by her cousin, who had also birthed one of her babies free of the medical system. Navigating an 18-hour birth portal, and experiencing a bit of difficulty during breastfeeding that was easily remedied by some infant bodywork. This is such a simple and gentle experience where Nadine was able to be in her power and surrender into having the exact birth that she needed in order to mother her child in the way that he wanted to be mothered. Hello, Nadine. Welcome to the Free Birthing in Color movement. I am very excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I say this all the time when I speak with first-time mothers that these are some of my favorite stories to listen to because I'm just so inspired and in awe of the women that, listen to their body and their intuition on the first go of pregnancy and birth. And yeah, I'm so excited to hear this story because you're going to share about how you went through your first birthing experience free of the medical system. So I'm just so elated that this is another type of story that I get to hear. And yeah, I'm just so grateful that you're here and you're willing to share, as I said before we were recording. So the first thing that I would love to ask you before we get into the birth story is what is your ancestry and lineage that you're passing on to your child?
So yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm
Mm,
really excited, a little nervous. My first time, actually my second time sharing it.
okay.
But the first time was 6 days after my son was born,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was just for family.
Mm,
and they did record it. And I just watched the recording today for the first time, and I was like, "Ooh,
Oh.
yeah." It was really nice. But it's different now. He's a year old, so I'm
Mm,
happy to be sharing.
hmm.
So my mom is German,
Mm.
and my dad is Ghanaian, Nigerian, and from Benin. So yeah,
Ah, okay.
mixed, quite mixed.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And wow, sharing your birth story, 6 days after birth to your family. Um, just want to ask, what was that like? Because you must have still just been in the thick of all of that birthing energy. So how was that story received from your family?
Oh, it was actually so my partner's auntie, his sister,
Mm,
and his uncle were present, and his
mm,
uncle was in the filming.
mm,
I think who else was present? Maybe his brother, I'm not sure.
mm.
But apart from that, no one really saw the video.
Okay, okay,
So it was just these few people, and we just looked at it for the first time today.
okay.
But it was really nice. It was quiet. I was just holding my baby, and I was just looking at my
Mm,
baby the entire time and
mm,
breastfeeding and just taking everything in. So my partner did most of the talking because I noticed I would like always be like, okay, how was that?
mm,
Yeah, you say that, because we were both
mhm,
present, and
mhm.
obviously I was supposed to I also did some of the talking or most of it, but not as much as I kept pushing it onto my partner because
Okay.
I think I was
Yeah,
just still in that bliss.
yeah,
So
totally.
I'm like, okay, it just all happened, and but it was beautiful. It was nice that I was
Mm,
able to share it because, like you said, first time mothers is a bit different if it's your first time because you have society, you have family members, people telling you you can't or you shouldn't.
mhm.
Um, yes, and we had a few of those
Yeah.
opinions.
Mm,
So afterwards, it was even nicer being able to sit there and say like, oh
yeah.
yeah, and it went the way I
Hmm.
wanted it, how I envisioned it, how I manifested it. So yeah,
Exactly.
it was actually really nice.
Wow. Oh, wow. Amazing. Okay. So now that's just making me very much more excited to hear this whole journey that you went on. So the next question I'd love to ask you is, where does your motherhood journey begin?
So I feel like it started really, really early.
Hmm.
So I grew up in Ghana. So I was born in Germany and then we moved to Ghana when I was 5.
Hmm.
And I remember even as a child, I would have these fantasies of it was strange, but I would ask my mom, I was like, what if someone dropped off a baby in a basket and wrote a lovely letter that we are supposed to keep this baby?
No.
And my mom is like, okay, that's a bit odd. Okay. And then I would say to her, oh, can't you have another baby? And she's like, no, I'm a bit too old because she had us. So I'm a triplet. So my
Oh,
mom
wow.
had,
Wow.
yeah.
First triplet that I've spoken to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so my mom had us when she was 39. So she was already
Mhm.
an older mom. I wouldn't say that today, but people used to say that's like you're a bit older. But she had my brother when she was 18. So she had a child when she was a bit young, and
Okay.
then when she was a bit older.
Mm.
Anyway, so at the time when I was like 8, 9, she wasn't looking to have children no more. And I would constantly still go on about it. And yeah, and I think it started around that time. But then my brother and his wife had a baby when I was 10.
Mm.
So I think that's when I noticed even stronger, like finally, that's the first time that this wish for a baby kind of
Mm.
was fulfilled.
Okay.
And in Ghana, a lot of people would say to me, because it's your brother's child, you're an auntie, but you're also a mother. Because when your sibling has a child, the responsibility is almost like is your child. So
Okay.
if someone saying that to me even made it sweeter. It was like, oh, okay. So
Hmm.
I took it seriously. I carried her on my back. When she'd sleep over at our house, I would lay down with her like next to her until she went to sleep.
Hmm.
Like already I did all these things even though I was 10, but I really wanted to nurture a child or a baby. And yeah, so I think
Wow.
it started quite early.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I've never heard that. I love how like in Ghana they say if your sibling has a child, you're also their mother. That's so beautiful. And really that makes total sense how, the familial relations all look after and tend to and care for this child as if it is their own.
Exactly. And I feel like the beautiful part about that is it's not just your family. So
Mm,
even growing up, like neighbors would be like, I'm going to the market, look after my child. So
mm,
even if you were a child, here in the West, you're a
mm,
child and you're kept really small with
mhm.
barely any responsibilities sometimes, not always, but
Yeah.
in Ghana, it would be like my neighbor would say something, and then her younger ones, like the younger ones, would still be around the older
Mm,
children and would still look after them, and so
mhm,
would other older children look after me. Or I mean, I think you learn responsibility quite
mm,
early,
mhm.
not just responsibility, but also that we're a community and we look after one another. So
Yeah.
I think I was really grateful that I got to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing that I wish I got to experience growing up, that was just the way of life. Like you're saying, we're all communal, we're everyone's children, and we all look after each other because that is how we thrive. So that's so beautiful that you did get to experience that in your life, and hopefully you're passing that down to your children. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
everyone should have that. That's the norm, this whole kind of what's it called? Oh, what's the word I'm blanking right now? Where it's the just like the single family, the mom, dad. What's
Or like a
oh,
nuclear family.
nuclear? Yes, there we go. The nuclear family. Yeah, it like first off, the name nuclear just sounds
Yeah.
very negative and terrible to begin with. But yeah, just that notion of the nuclear family where it's only mom taking care of everybody and the dad is off to work. It doesn't work. And you can see it in our society how we're just so messed up because of that. Whereas you coming from Ghana, experiencing everybody in community, loving all of the children, taking care, tending, looking after each other. Yeah, it makes a big difference. So I think that's wonderful that that was your upbringing. It's so beautiful. Yeah. So then I would like to ask you then, because you felt that this mothering energy came to you as you were
Mhm.
quite young, around 10 years old or so, as you started getting older and then like was there a point in your mind where you were just like, okay, I would like to have a child by maybe this age, or like I definitely am going to be a mother? Like what was that for you? Did you have, because you knew that your mom had her first around 18, in her late teen years, was it kind of like this is what I want, or I'm going to wait until I'm in my early mid 20s to kind of start that? What was that like for you then?
So I was very fixated on becoming a mother. It
Mm,
was very strong.
mm,
And I think with 16, I think that's my earliest memory of having that strong urge. I
mm,
want to be a mother.
mhm.
And then I knew I was like, oh, but let me finish school first. Cause I kept thinking like, oh, being a teenage mother, that's not so nice. And what are people gonna think and say? But I was also like, but if it would happen, at that time I wasn't even having sex. It wouldn't even have happened. But also becoming a mother, they were that strong. I would already have fantasies on
Mm,
what it would be like.
mhm,
Um, and it just kept, I carried that thought and that feeling and that wish, that desire
mm.
for the entire time until I actually had my baby.
Okay.
Um, I would be in relationships where it wouldn't feel right sometimes, or where, and I would still have these thoughts, but what if I still just had the child?
Mm,
And I wasn't really focused on the relationship per se. I wasn't really focused on building with that person because I felt like, oh, okay, it doesn't seem like this is going to be my person for a long time,
mm,
but I still want to be a mother. So my whole fixation was just being a mother.
mm,
And then I think in my late 20s, I just ended a relationship
mm,
that was not really healthy. And then I started talking to somebody who was like about co-parenting. And I think that was when I noticed like, okay, now I feel in control, because I felt like I don't need to be in relationships or, have these not working out, but there's
mhm,
another way to actually be a mother in the future if I didn't find the right person.
Right.
So I think, yeah, that actually led me to this point where I felt safe and secure in myself and didn't feel like I needed to chase or I needed to hold on to relationships or anything of that sort. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Beautiful. So then what was the energy like? And were you in a relationship when you got pregnant with that first pregnancy?
Yes, I was. So funny thing is, when I finally surrendered and let go, because I thought like now I'm in control because I'm talking to
Mm.
someone about co-parenting and I knew that there are other options,
Mhm.
that's when I met my partner. So
Yeah, of
and that
course.
was it's kind of always like that when you're like, okay, I'm not
Hmm.
looking for a relationship, I'm not looking at this, that. And then but the good thing was because I'd been talking to this other person
Mm.
and I've actually started asking myself the important questions and making the right kind of choosing myself like put myself first.
Yeah.
So when I met my partner, I was like straight from the first interaction, I was basically like, if you're about to tell me you're finding yourself and this, that, then, let's keep it pushing. And funnily
Mm.
enough, he was exactly at that stage, but he wouldn't say. He told me that later.
Okay.
So he was just like, no, I need to get to know her. And I was very forward and very open to what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was where the switch happened internally, but
Mm-hmm.
also how I carried myself. So basically, I wasn't accommodating the guy anymore, the man anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like, okay, let's just go with the flow. Let's just see where it goes. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
no, this is what I want. I'm ready to be a mother. And yeah, so
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. And it's so, like you're saying, how it does often happen, a woman or man, but in this case, women usually say, I'm done with shitty relationships. I'm
yeah.
just going to take care of myself. I don't want any of that. And then that person comes in because they're choosing, they're choosing themselves. They're standing in their power and really getting clear on like what it is that they want. And yeah, as you're saying, not just kind of doing these things for the men that you could be dating. It's like, nope, whatever I want is what is important. And I'm going to wait until that comes. And then it's like, oh, and there it comes. That's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
and I think sometimes we don't notice that it's actually been about ourselves the entire time.
Hmm.
Even if we think we're being, I mean, going with the flow, we're being accommodating or being nice or being polite or whatever. Actually, we don't realize that we are actually doing ourselves a disservice. And it took me that long to notice that in choosing myself and knowing what I want, because most of the time I wouldn't even know what I wanted. That was the thing. I knew I wanted to be a mother, but I didn't know how. I
Mm.
didn't really know what kind of relationship or what I was looking for in a partner and any of that. So it's kind of just indecisive and just going with the flow and yeah.
Yeah.
But I had to change that. But it took me some time to notice and to learn and accept these things.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, no, and that's beautiful. And what a journey that you got to go on. So, speaking to that journey, then, and you being so sure of wanting to have a child, was your partner in that same boat as well?
Um, not entirely. So he did know he wanted to have children, and he also wanted to have children with me, which was
Mm.
beautiful to hear. But he didn't feel financially ready
Mm.
or stable enough. Also, we, how long we met, and when did I fall pregnant? I think we were together for about a year when I fell pregnant.
Yep.
So it wasn't really 100% planned, kind of. So yeah, he wasn't in it completely, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not from the timing, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wanted to
Yeah.
wait a little for things to be a bit more stable.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what was it, your experience when you did get pregnant? Was it kind of like, did you know that you wanted to have your birth free of the medical system right away? Or did you just kind of go into that conveyor belt of like, oh, now we're pregnant, we're going to figure out our relationship, but this is kind of what we have to do now that we're growing life. I'm growing life in my womb.
Mm. So interestingly enough, when I was pregnant, I think I sat down and told him that so there's a deep desire inside of me. There's a knowing that I just want him present at the birth.
Mm.
And it's funny because only after speaking, I mean, saying that, I mean, I think I even cried because he said something about, yeah, but don't you know about the risk and what and this?
Okay.
And I started crying and I was like, I
Mm.
know, but this is something that it's a desire. I don't know why, but it's very strong.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to share that because
Yeah.
it's something that's been inside of me. But I don't think I knew that the entire time. It wasn't something I was working towards. It
Okay.
was just annoying that it's
Mhm.
like I woke up and then it was like, okay, this is how I need to have the birth.
Mm.
And yeah, so then he said, okay, well, then let's prepare, you know.
Okay.
We need
Mm.
to prepare because I'm very much so that I say it's my feeling and intuitive, and he's very logical and he needs
Mm.
to read and to,
Mhm. Mhm.
like have proof and things like that. So it was a middle ground, we found the middle where we both did the work.
Okay. Okay. So then finding that middle ground, did that mean that you hired on medical care for him to feel more satisfied? Or was it
Mm.
that you were just like, you need to read some books, understand female physiology, and then we'll do it in this way?
No, wait, so first of all, I was working at the time, and I work as an educator with little ones, with 1 to 3 year olds. And because I was living in another city, and when we got together, I just moved cities, so I just had a new job, and I was kind of feeling like, oh, I just started this new job, and now I'm pregnant. How am I going to tell them? First, I didn't want to tell them, but then I read online, I mean, like, I did some research and I noticed I had to tell them, especially because in Germany, so I live in Germany, most educators don't keep working when they're pregnant
Okay.
because of sicknesses and whatever. You can just get infections from kids easily, and
Mm.
if you don't have certain vaccinations, then you're kind of more, yeah, you're not really allowed to work.
Okay.
So that was also awesome because I mean, who wants to work when they're pregnant? I'm sure there are women that want to,
Mhm.
but I was like, oh, that's actually better because then I can just focus on being pregnant and, taking it
Mhm.
easy.
Mm.
So I did go to the doctor so they could check and then give me the whole paperwork so I can leave work. And I wasn't very aware of the whole ultrasound and everything, so I just went with that until it's funny when you start talking about something and on Instagram you start getting reels and videos and suggestions. So that's kind of what happened. And all of a sudden I see a video on, I think, or a reel or something, Free Birth Society. And so I started listening to the podcast, sending it to my partner, and then on Instagram, just seeing home birth,
Mm.
and then finding some on YouTube. So we did a lot of that, watched a lot of births, and then I read one book, one by Ina May Gaskin, I think,
Mm. Mhm.
childbirth.
Yeah.
So he read that one as well, and that book is fantastic because there's just so many different birth stories,
Mhm.
and the other half of the book basically just tells you on different things you need to know on labor and all these
Mhm.
things. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so that's all we did really. That was our preparation, and we didn't do any courses, any, yeah, what do you call them? Any birth
Like,
preparation courses
yeah,
or,
just birth education courses or
yeah,
whatever.
we didn't do any of those.
Right. And you don't necessarily need to take those courses because, like you said, you were listening to podcasts and you were
Yeah.
doing your own self-study, watching videos on YouTube and reading that book. Like you were following the intuitive guidance of what you needed to feel prepared in birthing in that way. So, I mean, yeah, you don't
Oh,
need to spend hundreds of dollars on a course if you don't want to.
yeah. So I didn't want any outside influence. I was a bit reluctant to doing too many courses. Also, I felt like every time I went to the doctors, I felt like she always said something or made me feel a certain way to kind of put me in
Hmm.
doubt. Or so she'd always say, "Oh, okay, everything looks healthy." And I was like, why? Were you trying to find something? Or she's like, oh, maybe we should switch the due date because your baby's a bit big.
Oh
So,
gosh.
Yeah, so things like that. And then I just heard so many of the other stories where, the whole your baby's too big, too small doesn't really make sense because usually they come out fine. So I
Mhm.
didn't really want to get influenced by that. So I was just trying to keep it minimum. But oh yeah, what I did want to talk about. So my partner and I did go to a midwife because we did consider also finding middle ground for both of us to feel safe.
Mhm.
We did go to a midwife and we had an evening where she basically explained to all parents that were there looking to hire her.
Mhm.
And we went for I think a second appointment where she said what she'd be doing, and then I did tell her that I actually want a free birth,
Yeah.
and she immediately was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pretend like I didn't hear that."
Really? Oof.
So I was just like, "Oh, why do you have to do that?" And her energy
Yeah.
was very, very bubbly and very strong. So I felt like she wasn't listening to me because
Mhm.
yeah, and then my partner agreed. Afterwards, we talked and we both talked about how we felt in her presence. And then
Mhm.
we're like, okay, we are good to do it without anybody else here. Also,
Yeah.
it's very late into the pregnancy. So we didn't feel like we had enough time to actually get to know her to feel comfortable.
Right.
And yeah, so we ended up saying no and not having anyone around really.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you listened to that because it's like it's such a terrible thing for a woman to just shoot you down and completely dismiss your wants and your wishes for the way that you want to birth. You know, you're expressing
Yeah,
something to her to say, "Oh, I'm desiring to have a free birth," because basically what you're saying is, "I would love to birth in my power. I would love to feel ecstatic in my birth. I would love to feel control and not have anybody mess with me." And then
right,
basically she's just saying, well, that's stupid. I'm not even going to entertain that idea. You
exactly. All
know,
right. Yeah, it didn't feel
it's, ugh, yeah, it's awful. So, and I'm, like I said, I'm so glad that you and your partner were just like, nope, she's not for us, because there are many women that have that same experience, but then still feel like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to hire her. And then she comes to the birth, and then the birth ends up being traumatic. It's an unnecessary transfer. All of these things happen to
mm,
her. And then it's like, oh, shoot, I wish I would have listened to myself in that
exactly.
meeting,
Right.
all those months back or whenever it is.
Yeah, and there was another thing. She also said that there were going to be two other midwives. So if she can't make it, then there would be two other ones that. So it wouldn't even have been.
Mm,
I would like to know who it would be. I kind of understand that they might not be available, but still, I felt like if
mhm.
someone was going to attend, I would want to know that person.
Yeah.
And the other thing was she gave us a price and said, listen, it's for you to be able to say if you can pay. So she had like two different prices. And she's
Mm.
like, if you have a little more money, it would be good if you can give us that. But if not, but then she just said, if you're able to afford a cup of coffee, then you should take that one. And that as well
No.
made me feel I felt like she's disrespectful. You don't know our situation. No, she didn't know our situation. She didn't know. She knew our situation. And still, she was trying to tell us in which category we would fit, but actually, without allowing us to make that choice for ourselves. And that also
Exactly.
felt, yeah, that didn't feel right. And also, I asked, so we had to pay an amount even if she wouldn't make it to the birth and maybe the baby came quicker because
Mm,
I was still like, what about if I don't call you? And she's like, yeah, but that money would be still it's still gone.
mm,
So I felt like, why? I get
mm.
that I need to get paid. I don't want anyone to misunderstand this, obviously,
Yeah.
but it didn't seem like genuinely like I want to be there for you. I'm here to support you
Yeah.
on it didn't really feel that way. So I was really happy that my partner as well felt the same way about her
Yeah.
and that we were both able then to decide like, okay, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and that's just like, ugh, that's just so gross to like if she's giving you the choice of two prices, then she's offering that up to you. It's not for her to then say, well, you can afford a cup of coffee, so pay the
Right.
higher price. If you want people to pay the higher price, you only offer the
The
higher
higher
price. Like I
yeah.
that's just it's so unbelievable some of the things that I hear from women like yourself, the conversations that they have with these medical midwives. It's like blows my mind that they would have the audacity to say certain things to women. And yeah, I'm just like, wow, they're really not in it for, like you're saying, the support and the care of the mother. It's really heartbreaking and still just like blows my mind when I hear things like that. Ugh,
Yeah.
it's
But
awful.
I'm glad for that experience.
Yeah, yeah, totally. A learning
Because
experience.
I think that is what my partner needed to experience. Because if it
Okay.
would have gone well, then it would be like, oh, nothing speaks against it, so we should hire her, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But this way, I was still able to have the birth that I wanted from
Yep.
the get-go. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Amazing. And how many weeks would you say you were at that time when then you decided like she's a no-go?
So I think we met her in May and I had him in July. So
Okay.
yeah, I think
So
we're fall. I think somewhere around then. I just remember nobody had a belly yet. I was the
okay.
only one in the meeting with like a big belly, and everyone was like, "Oh, you guys are really last minute, aren't you?"
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
So then what
yeah.
did you do afterwards when you were both just like, we're not hiring her, she's not coming to the birth? How did the rest of your pregnancy experience go on?
Yeah, so afterwards we decided to go to the UK because my partner's from there.
Okay.
And I also felt like when you're a bit overdue, so when they say you're overdue, you have to go to the doctors every second day and then every day. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't
Mhm.
want to be put into a stressful situation.
Mhm.
So we decided to go to my family. I have a cousin that lives in London,
Mhm.
and then his family lives there as well. So we went there and I went to no midwife appointments. I went to no doctors. I felt so free because no one knows me over there. I didn't
Mhm.
have this feeling like I needed to show up anywhere.
Mhm.
So I think when did we fly to the UK? Because you're not allowed to fly until I think in the 36 weeks. So it was maybe 2 weeks before that
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah, maybe in the 33rd week or so. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then you just took care of yourself and just kind of relaxed into these last
Yeah.
feelings of pregnancy. I
Yeah.
love that. And did you tell anybody else within your family or in your partner's family that this was your choice to birth now free of the system? Or did you kind of let them think
Yes.
that you were still having medical care?
No, no, I did. I'm very transparent and very open, and I love sharing stuff,
Okay.
which sometimes I'm a bit like, "Ugh, I wish I didn't because now you're too much of my business." But
Hmm.
I did share it, and I did tell everyone, so everyone knew. And sometimes, someone would say, "Yeah, but maybe consider this and that," and yeah,
Hmm.
it's just
Hmm.
like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. There's always one, which is, I mean, fair enough, but that's your choice. And you've chosen
yeah,
to make this decision that's best for you, that's best for your baby. And it should just be respected. That's how I feel, at least. No matter what the mother chooses, it's her choice, and everyone should just respect her for that
exactly.
and support
Yeah.
her in that.
Yes, I think it's because I was a first time mom, so most of them felt like,
Hmm.
they might. And it wasn't too many people, to
Hmm.
be honest. My mother, for example, first when I said it, when I was in early pregnancy and I mentioned it, she was also a bit like, hmm. But then she was just like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy you're changing this
Mm.
because she didn't get to see us until I think the sixth day.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so yeah, it
Mm.
was different. Our dad got to see us every day, obviously,
Right.
but she
Okay.
didn't. So
Right. And I'm assuming then because you were triplets, she
exactly.
just automatically was put in for a cesarean birth.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
And they just basically left her in another room and
Oh.
didn't think of, yeah, letting her see us until on the sixth day she said she broke down and cried and just felt like, did I really have babies? Where are they? And then they wheeled her over to us. So
Oh.
I think there's a lot of healing that I needed to do for how my birth, like how her birth, how she birthed us.
Hmm.
And because of that, I knew I wanted something totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's just so heartbreaking that, she didn't get to see her babies after 6 days. And then thinking like did I even have children?
She said she
Getting,
saw me like for a quick second.
yeah,
So they were like taking, because my sisters, they already, I was the last one, and they took my sister. She didn't really see them, but then they kind of held me
right.
in her direction, and she just, but it's just horrible because when you think about the whole skin to skin and all of that, and she
Yeah.
didn't get none of that with us
Yeah.
in the first few days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is heartbreaking. And I love that she was so, for you birthing in this way because it probably was, healing that
Yeah.
line of trauma that she wasn't able to have with you and your other siblings in the triplets. So, aw, that's beautiful that, yeah, you could do this kind of full circle healing for yourself and for her as well. Yeah. Did you want to speak to about like those last weeks of pregnancy and how it felt moving into that eventual birth process?
Yeah. So, yeah. So we kind of moved a bit. So we were at his dad's, and once in a while we'd be at his auntie's, and then at my cousin's. So we're kind of going from place to place a bit.
Mhm.
And then towards the end, we were at my cousin's. So first, I wanted to give birth at his auntie's house, but she sometimes Airbnbs it, and then somehow we got the dates mixed up, and obviously we weren't really sure when he was going to arrive. So, you know.
Mm,
But then in the end, I felt quite safe and just secure at my cousin's house because she's had four children
mm,
and we've known each other for a long time. So she used to live in Germany as well
mm.
before she moved to London. And um, she had her last baby. She free birthed her last child as well,
Oh,
and also had a
wow.
lotus birth. So for me, it was just like, what more do I need? Even if
Hmm.
she's not going to be present in the room while I'm birthing, but she's in the house.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it was just like having a big sister there,
Hmm.
knowing that. And she would always say, you've wanted it for so long, and I know you're capable, and I know you got this. So she
Hmm.
gave me all the reassurance that I needed.
Yeah.
So I knew like, okay, this is the place. I'm gonna have my baby right here, and that's
Mm.
where I need to have him. But also because her first baby, I was right there when she had her. Like I wasn't there while she gave birth, but I was at the hospital and she was like, "Ah, no, don't worry, you go." I don't think she's gonna come anytime soon. Anyways, and then she texts me. She's like, "Ah, she's here," and stuff like that. And I was very present with her first child growing up, and then the second one came, and
Mm,
all of that. So we were very close. So it was really special to also
mm,
have my first child in her orbit, in her space.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh my goodness. And I love that she birthed as well, free of the system. And that was that person that you said could give you the reassurance because many women I speak to, they are very certain, but then those last kind of weeks, it's like, okay, birth is imminent. It's just, it's a lot going on. Hormones are going. Yeah. And you're just like, that's just the natural preparation for getting into the birth. So it's so beautiful to have someone there that can say like, yes, this is the right choice, you're making the right choice, just follow your instincts, follow your intuition, and you got this. I love that. That's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, wow. And then do you want to speak to like what what was it as you started to kind of notice that your birth was starting? What things happened? How were you feeling?
So it was Wednesday. So that was the 5th of July.
Mm,
And I remember my partner saying, okay, maybe we should go back to his dad's house. And I started to feel a little stressed out because I was like, no, I want to have the baby here. This is where I feel safe.
mm,
I remember that day drinking some raspberry leaf tea and maybe even having a sip of coffee. I'm not too sure, but I remember doing something like that. Or I don't know whether it was ginger or something, but something that was a bit more where
mm.
I felt like, oh, maybe this will help. I don't know if it did anything, but I was just like mentally trying to tell myself, okay, let's get ready, let's do this.
Mm,
Anyways, that evening around 6 p.m., I went to use the toilet, had to pee, and when I wiped, I saw like a sticky, like egg whitey Yeah.
Mhm.
So then I was like really excited. I was like, oh, this must be my mucus plug that is
Mm.
detaching. Anyway, so I go down, I tell my partner, I'm like, at that time, my cousin and her kids just went out for, I don't know, they were going out. So they went in the house at that time. And so I told him, I was like, I think labor is starting because, and he got excited. And then we just got ready, put some mats on the floor in the bedroom. And so the bathroom was upstairs. So I'd always have to climb the stairs and go upstairs. And I had to use the toilet so much.
Mm.
I was so amazed what the body does in preparation for birth, like emptying everything. I was like, where's all this pee coming from? And everything I was just going, and every time a bit more mucus plug would detach.
Mm.
And every time that happened, my sensations would kind of be a little more like it will get stronger.
Mm.
They got stronger and stronger. And so I had this app on my phone, but I didn't want to use the app, but my partner used the app just for him to kind of know the time and everything like that. I didn't want him to tell me because I felt like anything like that might stress me or take me out of the zone.
Mm.
Um, so I basically just paced around the room, went upstairs to use the toilet. I tried going into the bathtub twice,
Mhm.
but for me, that was intense. I felt like when a wave came, it was just so painful and so intense that I needed to get out of the water. Maybe it was
Mm.
because there wasn't enough space. I'm not too sure what it was.
Mhm.
So I tried that twice, and then I was just like, okay, water isn't for me, even though I thought that would be relaxing and that would help. Uh,
Mhm.
so then I think I labored for 18 hours
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
during the night. I always kind of went into child's pose.
Mhm.
I couldn't sit down, I couldn't lay down, I just couldn't do any of that. It was very, yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And at some point, I had stacked all the pillows up and I kind of just went this way
Oh,
and
yeah.
just, yeah. And I felt like I was sleeping for seconds, but it felt like deep sleep.
Mhm.
And then another sensation, and then I would be awake and I would just kind of move through it, but very minimal movements. I
Mhm.
must say, people say walk around, move, and all of that. I didn't really have the energy, or I didn't feel like doing any of that. So I was very much put on the bed, just kind of relaxing and just breathing and just,
Mhm.
staying within myself. And the
Mhm.
only time I basically moved is when I had to go upstairs to use the bathroom. Um, then the next day, so I did that the whole entire night.
Mhm.
And the next day in the morning, just continued until noon. I was just kind of pacing around in the bedroom a little bit, but then also just sleeping.
Mhm.
And at some point, my partner said I should get up and move because also gravity and all of that. And I kind of felt slightly annoyed. I was like, no, you don't tell me what to do. I need to rest. And then I was like, can you just go get me some water? And so he left me in the room. And then all of a sudden I was like, I need to stand up. And so I stood up and there was a mirror, and then I saw like a little blood and water trickling down my leg. And then I was like, oh, okay, maybe my waters are breaking. But it wasn't like strong, it was just a trickle. And
Mm.
then my partner came back in, and then I was like, I think it's started. So I was like, yeah, maybe you need to go behind me or whatever so you can catch him. And then he was like, oh, I think I see a little hair. I think I can see the head. And I was like, oh, really? So then I put my hand underneath and I touched his head. And
Mm.
I was like, I didn't, yeah, I knew it was cool. Yeah, yeah. And I touched his head. And then I was like, oh, yeah, me too. Me too. So I was really excited. And then I went into a deep squat. And then it was just a one, yeah, one, I don't even want to say push because it was just one force. Let me say that.
Mm.
It was one force. Um, and then the head was out. And then I said to
Mm.
my partner, and my screaming was very low, loud.
Mhm.
Um, then my partner was like, okay, okay, get ready. So the body's coming out. I was like, psh, I need to rest because I heard that. So in the podcast, and I was like, it doesn't need to happen all at once.
Mhm.
So I was like, nah, let me rest. But then while saying that, I was screaming already. And
Mm.
then the body came out with all the water and all the blood. And that was just like, when I think of it, for me, I describe it like, when an elephant is being born or a cow,
Yeah.
that is it. It was heavy. It was a full force. I felt like I'm like giving birth to the earth. It was
Mm.
that intense and that forceful. So yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like that the third stage, the birth actually was very quick.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I love that, giving birth to the earth. And oh, that's beautiful that you, yeah, you just did what you needed to do. And then I love how you just stood up and then it's like, oh, baby's coming. So let's just get in that deep squat and continue on with that sensation to birth your baby. Um, and what was it like, those immediate moments? Like, did you have thoughts of your placenta, or did it just pop out when, shortly thereafter?
Yeah, it was actually so next a few minutes. So my partner then says, "Oh, let me give him to you, pass him to you." But because I was still squatting and then it was kind of slippery everywhere,
Mm.
my thought was I was like, wait, I need to sit down first. And then I looked and I was like, do I just sit in my mess or what am I going to do? And I'm very particular. I don't even like anyone touching me with wet hands. So,
Okay.
so then yeah, I decided to sit down and then I was like, oh, but this is nice. It's nice and warm. And it smelled really nice and sweet. So I was
Mm.
just like, "Oh, this is nice, okay." And then he passed, our son to me, and so then I just held him, and then soon he was very calm and very quiet, almost like he was sleeping a little bit, but then he had his eyes open really. So first his eyes were closed when my partner went to the back to look to see if he's coming, right? To kind of
Mhm.
catch him. I
Mhm.
was like, are his eyes open? He was like, no, they're closed. But when he came out, yeah, then he had his eyes open. He
Mm.
was very awake. I mean, awake as in
Mhm.
present.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, he started crying. But the cry was like so quiet and so, I don't know, newborn, like very
Mm.
quiet. Yeah, and then he latched on fairly quickly after that. And then my partner was like, oh, so this is the placenta. And I was like, wait, what?
Mm.
Already? Because I don't know whether it's because he latched on and sometimes I think the uterus like contracts when a baby is suckling.
Mhm.
And I think because I felt it immediately he latched on, I felt my whole womb kind of go a bit
Okay.
tight and it was
Mhm.
quite uncomfortable. But I didn't feel like the whole contraction type of, oh, now this must be why my placenta's coming, or this is it. He just held it and was like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, that was quick.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Wow, I love that. Just so seamless. And yeah, and it's true, when the baby latches, it stimulates the oxytocin, which then gets the uterus to clamp down so that it can detach the placenta so that you can stop bleeding if there is any blood that might be coming out. And then normally, yeah, she just
Yeah.
gently falls out and that's it. Yeah. Oh, wow, I love that. And what did you do with your placenta afterwards?
So we did have a lotus birth. Um,
Mm.
his cord was a bit short, but I felt like if we don't do this, then it would be easy on in the future to not continue with certain things. Like, for
Mm.
example, let people influence us, whether it's vaccinations or whatever.
Mhm.
So I felt like we really needed to have this process, this lotus birth, like we needed to complete it.
Right.
So basically, we put it in sea salt and
Mm.
herbs and just kind of dried it out a bit and had his umbilical cord attached.
Mm.
I think it was on the sixth day he kicked it off. And then,
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I
yeah.
love that. That's so beautiful. And how was your breastfeeding relationship? Because he latched right away, but did it prove to have a bit more difficulty, or was it kind of seamless going through
Yes,
that?
at first I thought it was easy, even though
Hmm.
it felt a little uncomfortable, maybe or a bit painful a little bit.
Yeah.
But also, I had so much milk from right from the beginning
Okay.
that he would kind of choke on it.
Oh, yeah.
And um, yeah, so it almost felt like his latch sometimes was a bit too strong or not quite. maybe he was like taking in too much air at the same time, or the milk, it was just too much. It was just, we
Mm.
had some difficulties around that.
Okay.
Um, but we went to see a chiropractor when we came back to Germany, like I think it was 6 weeks in.
Mhm.
And then they just noticed he had some tension in his neck and his
Mm.
jaw. And
Mm.
after that was taken care of, then everything felt a bit, yeah, it felt normal and wasn't painful anymore.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Yeah, that's so nice that, yeah, you just gave him some body work, and then it really is a testament to how, touch on the body of babies can help with these
Mhm.
processes of breastfeeding or whatever it may be, with the latch, with yeah. Oh, oh, I love that. What a beautiful story, because it's just so, like I say to most women, like, just so simple, just so gentle. Your baby came out and you said the eyes were open, just had a very gentle cry, just to kind of say, hello, I'm here in the world. And yeah, everything just is like smooth and seamless from what you're saying. And it's like, oh yeah, birth can be that easy when the mother is in her power and in charge and trusting herself.
I think most of it is just mental. It's
Mm,
so there's one thing that I wasn't afraid of the birth. I knew that the birth, I mean, the baby's gonna come regardless. So
mm-hmm.
I wasn't afraid. The
Yeah.
only thing, my main fear was that I was gonna tear. And I didn't
Mm,
know how to navigate my thoughts or anything around that. So I ended up tearing.
okay.
But it wasn't major, so I didn't need to get any stitches. I mean, I could have, but I didn't want to.
Yeah.
But everything healed on its own and everything's fine.
Mm,
That was one thing. And now reflecting and having heard other stories, I know next time I think I would take my time a little more, a bit more, and just breathe a bit more because he came with full force and I was just
mm.
like, and he was out. But I think for the next one, if we do have a second child, I think I'll take my time and kind of hold the baby in a bit and then go
Okay.
gradually.
Yeah.
And also, I heard that if you take enough magnesium, then you would be more relaxed. So apparently, many women have magnesium deficiencies, and that also leads to them tearing. I don't know
Oh,
how
okay.
true that is, but that's something I heard recently, and I was like, okay,
Mm,
maybe that's
mhm.
something that I would look into for the next pregnancy.
Okay. Yeah. And with that tear, because you said you didn't get any stitches or anything, what did you do to just remedy that situation naturally?
Didn't do much.
Mm,
I I don't even remember putting anything on that.
right.
I just let it heal, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't. Because at first I thought I need to do like what's it called? Um, like some herbs and just take a bath in herbs and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't too comfortable doing any of that. Also, I wasn't at home.
Right.
So after my cousins, I think on the fifth day we went back to his dad's house. And
Mm-hmm.
for the second time around, I would want to just be in my own space and
Yeah.
not have to move from place to place
Mm-hmm.
because that is also a bit, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
really stressful, but it kind of takes you out of that bubble. We're just here, newborn, and all of that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it does add to the stress. But in the moment, yeah, that's just
Mm-hmm.
how it was. So I
Yeah.
didn't really feel the need, like I wanted to take a bath over there, I wanted to do this, do anything that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I love that. And I asked that question because a lot of women do have that, oh my goodness, what if I tear during birth? I don't want to. How do I stop that from happening? And, tearing in birth is like our body, our vagina is made to stretch, the vulva is made to open for the baby. And if it tears, you will most likely have a better healing response without having it sutured, unless it's a very deep fourth, fifth degree tear where it goes into the anal cavity. But most of the time, the tears that women have will just heal naturally with rest, with good food, with, building their oxytocin and just allowing their body to do what it does. So I love that, yeah, you were conscious of the tear and then it was just kind of like you didn't really do anything for it and it still healed. That's what a lot of women get worried of. But if I don't get it stitched or if I don't do this or put seaweed or honey or all of these things, it's never gonna, heal quote unquote properly. But it can. It's that's our
Yeah.
body. She will always heal because that's how she's meant to be.
Yeah, I think another thing also that where my fixation was on a bit during pregnancy. So I was watching a lot of videos, and then obviously hypnobirthing came up. And then I was like, that's how I want to give birth, with no screaming, just gentle breathing. And then the night before so the day before, I told my partner, I was like, actually, I I'm going to surrender,
Mm,
and I'm going to, instead of choosing or wanting that birth, I'm going to get the birth that I need to
mm,
become the mother that I need to become for my baby.
mm,
And I think that was also a very important one, to really just let go, instead of focusing on, oh, but it can be painless, it can be this, it can be that. Because that moment when I screamed, I didn't feel like I'm just screaming because he's coming out.
yeah.
I felt like all the moments where my voice wasn't heard because I thought I had to be quiet, or someone told me, you can't say this, you can't say that, all the times, even when I was on my period and I had to go to work and I was in pain and I
Mm,
just pretended like it was all okay. All these moments where someone did something to me that wasn't okay and I didn't speak up for myself, that was like the birth. It kind of, my me screaming was
mm,
healing that part. It was speaking up for myself. And
mm.
so at the end of the day, I am happy that I had the birth that I needed so I can step into motherhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
that just gave me chills right there. Oh, yeah, that's so beautiful, and that makes perfect sense. It absolutely makes perfect sense that, yeah, you would have the birth that you need to mother this child and how oh, I wish I'm just, like, thinking in my head, I wish I got to hear that primal roar, that primal scream that you did because I'm sure, as you're saying, it was so potent and just put in those huge lines of healing for yourself, and that's exactly what mothers are supposed to and are meant to experience in their birth, having these primal screams and these roars to bring in that deep cellular healing of all of these past experiences that they've gone through where, like you're saying, you weren't able to speak up for yourself or whatever situation it may be. Every woman's obviously birth will be exactly what she needs, but hearing you say that is just so like, yes, this is why women are meant to be birthing in this way in their power so that they can rewrite that and then stand even more firm in who they are as a woman and a mother on this earth. And it's really unfortunate that women that birth in captivity within the medical model, they don't get that chance. And if anything, it's more trauma, it's more violence, it's more hurt against them. So thank you for saying that and speaking to that because it's just like, oh, so powerful to hear those words from you.
yeah. Yeah, it's weird because we've just been conditioned to believe that we need to give our power to someone else.
Hmm.
But for me, I also felt like, so how I kind of told my partner, when I was like, intuitively, it just needs to be both of us. Because I feel like conception, nobody was there.
Hmm.
It was just the two of us. And
Hmm.
then his soul, being around. I feel like my baby soul was around and he was like, you're going to be my parents. I choose
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
Um, so I feel like it's very intimate.
Yeah.
And also, just going to the doctors, I feel like sometimes I would tense up a bit. It's kind of uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So I feel like the birth would have ended up like that. I wouldn't have been able to just relax. And that's why I didn't want anyone there. I didn't want anyone present. And I was also afraid that sometimes my people pleasing habit would
Mhm.
then just give more power to them.
Yeah.
So I already knew what I needed was my own space where I'm in control, where I feel safe, where no one can push me to do things that I know I didn't want. Yeah. And I do hope that more women would step into their power.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, I feel like they constantly would just say, oh, you're just so brave. You're just so strong. I'm not as strong as you. And it breaks my heart that they think like that about themselves. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
it's just how they've been conditioned their entire life, and their
Mhm.
mothers before that.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, because women that choose to birth out of the medical system, They're not brave women. There's nothing special about them. Like, they're just women that are truly trusting themselves and wanting to make different choices, that have that confidence, that may have found the right people to support them. But, this way of birth is available to every single woman on the planet. There isn't a woman in this world, past, present, or future, that will not be able to birth their children free of the medical system, right? And like you said before, it's a mental thing. It's all mental. The conditioning that we have been put through as women from before our birth, starting with our mothers or grandmothers, gets carried down to make it seem as though we cannot step into our power because we're not allowed, we're not strong enough, we're not whatever, whatever, whatever. And yeah, it is really sad to hear women that are like, "Oh, I could never do that. You're so brave for doing that." And it's like, well, you could do it too, but you just have to make some changes in your life and you have to, get into the confidence that you are a powerful woman and surround yourself with other women and people that see that in you, really.
Yes. And also when you just think about how he was born, there were no hospital noises, lights, no strange voices.
Mm,
There's this post, these comments I read recently where the mothers are sharing what their 2-year-olds say about birth. So when they're around 2 years old, they ask, "Do you remember your birth, or how did you come into this world? When first you
mm,
were mommy's belly and this and that." And then
mm,
there were so many beautiful different stories that were being shared. And
mm,
some of the stories were like, "Oh, I didn't hear mommy or daddy. I heard a strange voice, and that was like the midwife." Or there was a bright light, and that was like, these
mm,
things. So if we can avoid that, and
mhm.
just knowing that your baby doesn't need to hear strange voices or be touched in gloves by a
Yeah,
stranger, because they are strangers.
yeah.
Like we were the only two people that held him when he was
Mhm.
born. I was the one who was able to kind of gently just clean him a bit. It's not even cleaning. I think I just kind of had a cloth on him. I don't even think I was cleaning him or wiping
Yeah.
him down, really. It was
Mhm.
just, we were just staying in that moment for as long
Mhm.
as we could, until it's like, okay, now I need to switch position. So that was really
Exactly.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why most babies that are born in this way, they don't cry when they come out. There are some babies born, to a mother out of the system and they're crying because 'cause they're vocal and, like, they have something to say, but a lot of babies, like you said, your son just opened his eyes and then he made this soft sound just to let you know they're there because he was already in the comfort of your hands. He was in the comfort of his father's hands, so he knew, like, "Okay, I'm leaving the womb space. I'm leaving this home that I've known for all of these months." And then it's like, "Oh, wow, and now I'm in the hands of these people that I've heard talking, the hands of these people that were singing to me, that were gently touching the belly while I was in there." And then they're just chill. Whereas babies
Mhm.
born in hospital do have more of the expressive reactions because, yeah, the bright lights, they're hearing somebody strange touching them and like aggressively rubbing their back or shoving the little squeegee things down their nose. And like, that's no way for anybody to enter into the world. That's traumatic and painful and extremely scary.
Yeah. Also, I found it interesting that everybody was like, "And how much did he weigh?"
Mhm.
I don't know. That wasn't even on my mind. The only thing I wanted to know was his birth time.
Yep.
I remember he was about to be born, and I was just like getting ready to squat, and I was like, "Wait, wait!" On the bed was still my partner's phone, and I was like, "We still need to get your phone so we can, note down the time." And then I
Mm,
still stretched over, grabbed the phone, and then just to have that, that was
mhm,
like one thing that I was like, "Okay, I want to know."
mhm.
But everything afterwards, we didn't really do any of the
Yeah.
usual standard
Mhm.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not really necessary, you're fully capable and able to see your baby, check, make sure that everything is right, they're breathing, all these things. And if something seemed a bit more out of the ordinary, you would, do something about it. But yeah, like weighing a baby, measuring a baby, all that stuff isn't really necessary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we did have it done on the fifth or sixth day, I think. So in the UK, you're allowed to free birth, but because we didn't tell anyone that we were
Mm,
going to do that, once he registered our son, the
mm,
midwives, they were there immediately. Like they came, they were
okay.
like, "Oh, we've heard," but we went at his dad's place, so
Mhm,
so we're still in London, and
mm,
So we had to then go to his dad's house the next day and then made a new appointment with them. So on the fifth or sixth day, they did end up coming. But she
Mhm.
was really nice and gentle and just,
Mm.
asked if she could check and
Mm.
if we want the vitamin K shots or anything like that. And we're like, no, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, so from there, that was all that was good. And then on the 10th day, I think she wanted to see him again.
Mhm.
But that was a really, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Oh, yeah, I just love your story. It's just so, yeah, so simple, so beautiful, so easy, and yeah, it's just I'm as I always say, I'm just so grateful of the stories of first time mothers to really put that in the narrative that your first birth with your first baby can be beautiful, powerful, free, gentle, and safely done at home with you and your partner, or you, your partner, and whomever else that you choose to invite to that space. And it doesn't have to be a medical provider of any kind.
Um,
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I was able to listen to myself. I'm
Hmm.
grateful I was able to speak up for myself. And also, I'm very grateful that my partner was on board, even if in the beginning he was a bit like he had his questions, but that's
Yeah.
okay because we
Hmm.
all have our beliefs, or
Hmm.
yeah, we were all taught different things. And
Yep.
the fact that we were able to do it as a team
Hmm.
was beautiful. And also the fact that we were at my cousin's house, and then once he was born, I called her in, and it
Mm.
was beautiful to have her there and her children as well. Yeah.
Aw, yeah, that just sounds so dreamy and so magical. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing this story. Because yeah, I know there's going to be a woman here that's just like, okay, Nadine has done it. And it was just so simple. And it was her first baby and she trusted herself. So I can do it too. Yeah. Before I let you go, before we end this conversation, I would love to ask you if there was any woman that wanted to maybe speak to you a little bit more in depth, would you be willing to give a way that they can contact you?
Yes. I would say on my Instagram. I
Mhm.
think that's the most easy.
Perfect.
I think it's Naira Dean. I think it's Naira_Dean. But I would send it to you and then you can put it in.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Thank
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nadine. This was so
you.
beautiful and it's just filled my heart so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, women, for listening to this latest episode of the Free Birthing in Color movement. If you want to continue supporting this movement and all that comes with it, please give a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Like the videos on YouTube and share this episode with some of your friends. As reciprocity for the work that I'm doing and the content that I'm creating, it only takes 2 minutes to show your support through a 5-star rating, a small written review, and a share. If you want to give a monetary donation to help with the back end costs of keeping everything that is happening within this movement going, you can send your donations through PayPal via the link in the show notes. And again, as reciprocity for the work that I'm doing and creating, I'm so grateful when those donations come through. I have many other avenues of work that I've created, such as Portals of Wisdom, which are educational guidebooks for women to reclaim and remember their personal bodily sovereignty. I have one-to-one activation sessions and one-to-one or group mentorship opportunities, as well as an amazing course called Cyclical Woman that is a deep dive into the natural cycles of Mother Earth and connecting into your internal rhythms in relation to where Mother Earth is at any given moment. And lastly, I want to mention again the Free Birthing in Color community. It is open for enrollment, so please, if you want to create a deeper sense of connection to myself and other women navigating the same phase of life that you're in, please, please, please come and join us and let's create something truly beautiful in there. All information can be found within the show notes below, or you can go to primalwomanportal.com and you'll find everything that you need. I'll see you in the next episode.